You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Mike Jones, partner at MeanPug Digital, located in Brooklyn, New York, but assisting law firms all over. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing great, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, man, great to have you on. MeanPug Digital, we just connected in the past couple weeks, and I have to say, just want to give Andy a shout out, Hope a shout out. Everybody's really cool. And, I look forward to Lawyer Stories work, looks forward to, doing some fun stuff. So,
as do we.
Yeah, cool. So, Michael, let's just start with the basics. Like, just tell us where you were born and raised. Let's lay the foundation for that.
Sure. So I'm originally actually from the Washington, D.C. area.
Nice.
So where I grew up, it was all politics was the toast of the town, and
that's it.
I didn't know that lawyers weren't common until I got out of here. So
right.
Okay. Been around them for a long time.
Wow, that's amazing. So right in DC, how did you was it just like every other person you were talking to was a lawyer? Is that what happened, sort of thing?
I mean, yeah, so I come from a family where both of my parents are lawyers. A few of my cousins are lawyers. Aunties and uncles are lawyers.
Wow.
And the school I went to, just about everyone's parents in some form or another was either in business or law or obviously politics. So I've seen a lot of people using law degrees in a lot of different ways. But it was very let's just say it was an analytical upbringing.
Yeah. Wow.
But I wouldn't trade it for the world.
I bet you're getting prosecuted at every turn. You can't even do something so I was going to ask, what was the moment you knew you wanted to be a lawyer? But it kind of sounds like it was in the veins or something, a little bit in the blood.
Yeah. I mean, so interestingly enough, I think being surrounded by that many lawyers, originally I had no intent of even being a lawyer, right?
Okay.
Like everyone says, you go to law school, it teaches you a way to think. I mean, that was kind of drilled into my brain from the start.
You were okay. All right.
But I will say, as my path kind of unfolded, going in potentially a couple of different directions, the idea of being a lawyer it was nice. No one pushed me into it. It was just something I wanted to do. But that said, I literally walked into law school my first day knowing that my intent was not to be a lawyer long term. I just wanted to understand it and have the credential.
Yeah, I think that's okay. That's a reason. I think people do need a reason to go to law school, and that is a legit reason. So you ended up at you went to the University of Miami, Florida.
I did.
The U, right? The U.
You got it.
All right. So tell me about that. How'd you end up down there? By the way, I will say Lawyer Stories had a pretty sweet happy hour in Miami.
Very good.
We've had our first two events there, and one of them was this past, I think it was January. It was a great time. Just a little shout out to Miami and all the Lawyer Stories friends down there. So tell us, how did you end up at the U, man?
Well, I mean, it was senior year. You had to make your choices, and the warm sounded better than the cold. But to be fair, I did wind up going down and meeting with some of the administration down there. And I give credit where credit's due. That school opened so many doors for me.
Yeah.
And I kind of knew going in that I wasn't just going to go down and party. I mean, don't get me wrong. Parties were good.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I knew that I thought that school would try harder to open doors for me than other ones.
Yeah.
So I went down and they did not fail to deliver.
Yeah.
They
is the alumni just so amazing down there? Is there a big alumni network and just a lot of, it's very well reputable school down in
the alumni network is amazing. And the thing that I didn't expect was my peers were some of the most connected people I've ever met, right? My next door neighbor, one of his parents is the CEO of an investment bank. Going down the hall, I could rattle off different things that people's parents did, and that's something I didn't expect at all, but wound up being super, super valuable long term in terms of finding mentors and connecting with people as I grew professionally.
Yeah, that's so important. Were you in a fraternity there or anything?
You know, ironically enough, I was not, but at one point I
Okay,
did live in a frat house.
you
Don't ask
did.
me how that happened.
Which one was it?
Sig Up. I
Okay.
lived in one of their houses for a minute, and
All
then
right, all right.
it's a smaller school, so it's easy to be friends with
Yeah,
all the
gotcha.
yes.
Gotcha. So you speak about mentors. Tell us the importance of having a mentor.
I can't emphasize enough how much my mentors have helped me throughout my entire professional path, and even socially, right? You have people that are your mentors in different ways. Some are kind of formal. It's, oh, will you be my mentor? Would you agree to do this? And some that just happen organically.
Right.
That is like getting the shortcut to any knowledge that you need in a specific area, right?
Yeah.
So I've had mentors in banking and finance and law and marketing in a bunch of different areas. And it was amazing to just be able to kind of shortcut and learn from all their mistakes. But the one thing that I've always said you should be cognizant of when talking to a mentor is oftentimes they're going to be older than you and they
Right.
grew up in an era that's a bit different from yours. So the principles that they're teaching you are probably spot on because things don't change that much.
Right.
But the actual implementation of the stuff that they're talking about, that can vary drastically.
Interesting. I think that's very good advice. So you went to Miami, and then
Hmm.
did you take any time off between law school in Miami, or did you go right
I
to?
was straight through.
Then you left the warm weather in
I
Miami,
did.
and you came up closer to where I am right now. The birth of lawyer stories in Massachusetts. You
You
went to
got it.
BC Law, great school, by the way. Shout out to a guy who works for us, our young friend Mitch, who's going to be a 1L at BC Law in the fall.
Amazing.
So yeah, man, we're excited for Mitchell. So tell us about your experience. How'd you end up in like the cold tundra?
Well, again, I kind of just thought about where I wanted to go, and I've always like I had a bunch of family that went to school in Boston. It seemed like a place that would really make you buckle down. And
Okay,
everything I had heard about law school, like you need to pay attention, you need to do the work, and you need to get through it. Um, but again, I went up there, I met with the administration kind of before I got there, talked to them, tried to figure out, okay, am I just going to be another cog in the wheel here, or could I actually make like a place for myself? And ultimately, BC was the place that I could do it. So went there, and again, I've been so fortunate. Another place that did not fail to deliver. Like they really crushed it.
yeah, that's awesome. It's a great school, BC Law. So were you like? I hear people who have relatives who are attorneys, like they'll sit in class with their laptop, they'll have like DMs and stuff open. They get called on, they shoot a message to like their family member. Hey, I just got called on. Like, what's the answer? Like, were they like helping you out with maybe not that technical, but were they helping you out a little
Not
bit?
at all.
No,
0%.
it's good.
I mean, it was nice to be able to commiserate with them when stuff was hard, but at least at BC, I actually thought if you go to class and pay attention, the professor is literally telling you what they want you to know. Like the
Really?
only people
Okay.
that I found really like struggled with like I mean, obviously conceptually things can be difficult, but literally if you paid attention in class, those were all the people that got the best grades. So
Right.
I was like super attentive when I was in class. It was the one thing that I really like buckled down on. I was like, I'm going to pay attention because this book is huge, but we're only studying these few cases. So I know that this is what I'm going to get tested on.
Right. That's smart. I feel like that happened in undergrad sometimes. Like
Yep.
you didn't look at the book, but like, well, I mean, maybe I did, but you just listen to what the guy said, like the professor said, and like that's usually what it is, right?
Hmm.
So that's good. And plus, I mean, BC, like you earned your spot to BC. That's like incredible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Good people there.
yeah, oh yeah. So tell us about. I know you're from DC, but is there more of an? I'm going to ask you about your interest in politics and legislation and all that, like rather than straight up PI law or like family law or what have you.
Sure. So, growing up, like my ambition was always to be in politics. Like I loved it. That was the thing I did. Like my Super Bowl growing up was like State of the Union. Loved it.
Oh,
But
that's awesome!
and it was great because when you're in like the hub of it, like my barber used to be the Senate barber, so you'd hear about like the things that happen behind
Wow.
the doors that no one knows about, and you feel special, right? But kind of as I got older, my path took me very internationally. So I've been
Right.
fortunate enough to,
That's next on my list actually for to ask you.
sure. I
No,
mean,
go ahead. Go. Let's hear about it.
um, so I'll jump into that later, but that really kind of broadened my horizons to geopolitics and just
Right.
kind of what the world has to offer more broadly speaking.
Let me ask you a
So,
question about like politics in
sure.
DC. Like, do you think people? This is such a ridiculous question, but do you think people are just like politics are out to just like get each other's job and like become the president? I mean, there's just so many people that I feel like it's cutthroat in DC. I've only been there a few times, but it feels like they're all just like gunning for something more and more and more.
Yep,
Is there like some maybe you could put that in perspective for me a little bit?
for sure. I mean, I think it's similar to just about anything, right? You're gonna have your people who are there who are just diehard believers in the cause and they're super passionate about it. And then you have the people that are going to be, whether it's social climbers or trying to advance in their career, like whatever
Right.
it is, like you get different flavors of people in different places. And I think the
Yeah.
more you're exposed to a given industry, the easier it is to see who is which, right?
Yeah.
So I think that there are a lot of people up on the Hill who are, whether they're lobbyists or they're interns or they're working like for a senator or even in the White House that believe so strongly in their cause. And then you have people that are like, this is just the next thing that I need to achieve the thing that I ultimately want, right?
Right, right. I think that's probably like any like community in like a different scale. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So like you went to Hong Kong at like
Hmm.
two different times. Like you went for a year in like 2015, and then you came back, and then you went back in 2019. Can you tell us a little bit about your Hong Kong experience?
Sure. So the first time I went out there was actually during law school. So just kind of through networking, I wound up getting this like amazing opportunity to go out and work for the CEO of Ogilvy and Mather Hong Kong. So like he
Okay.
was the CEO of all of Asia. But for my like actual the last semester of law school, I wound up living out there. And this was like pre-pandemic, pre everyone Skyping, whatever. I would Skype back in the classes and then get my like externship credit for the work I was doing at Ogilvy.
Wow, so they were like pretty advanced back there.
Yeah, they were on top of it. So
They
I
were.
was so incredibly lucky. I mean, 4 a.m. class is it has its downsides, but well worth it to be able to
Yeah.
explore the other side of the world. And that internship, there's another good example of mentors, because the person who brought me out there has become a mentor and will be my friend for years and years and years. But being able to, I mean, study under him and just kind of learn everything from like how the agency works, what the legal aspects of how an agency works, like
What
through
did they
every.
do? I'm sorry. This is Ogilvy. Like, can you just tell us quickly, like what?
So Ogilvy is one of the biggest like institutional marketing companies in the world, but they've diversified into a bunch of different areas. So now they do consulting, they have tech consulting, they have strategy consulting. They've branched into a ton of stuff. And the person I was working for was overseeing all of this,
Okay. Wow.
right? So he had the Singapore team under him, he had the Hong Kong team under him, Vietnam, like a bunch of different countries, all reporting up to this guy. And just being able to see that breadth of different kind of interaction, especially the biggest thing I learned was the difference in culture, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a Western, traditionally like American company moving out to Asia, and there's just differences. Even
Yeah.
like the way you greet each other, right? The
Totally.
exchange of business cards, completely different
Yeah,
in
how
some
does that
places.
work? Actually, I just ordered like I re-upped my business cards today, so this is a
All right.
perfect opportunity to tell me how they did it there.
There we go. I mean, over there, normally, I mean, before everything went digital, now everyone just taps their phones together. But
Yeah.
before, you used to hold a business card with two hands, like slightly bow as you passed it, like look at it, show respect, and then place it on the table for the remainder of the meeting. In the West, we just take that, put it in our pocket. It's like, great to meet you,
Yeah, and then
right?
it ends
So,
up as like a coaster or something, right? Like
exactly.
it ends up mixed in with like the dollar bills in your pocket.
Yeah.
So okay, that's pretty interesting. So like, what did you do between the time you you came back and then you went back in 19?
Yep. So, in between, I wound up working for a company in London for a little bit. Um, I wound up bopping. Well, obviously, I took the bar. And if anyone listening is about to take the bar, just one piece of advice and take it with like 3 grains of salt. is get in a place where you are like comfortable and chill.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
don't sit in
Good
the
advice.
library with everyone else who's freaking out and stressing. I literally
Yeah.
moved with a buddy who doesn't even study law to San Diego and learned how to surf. That was it. My summer was studying and learning to surf. That was it. And took my bar one time and passed. So I'm
Which
sure if
one
I
did you
could do
take
it,
in California?
I studied in California. I took the Massachusetts bar.
Nice, dude. We're like both barred in Massachusetts. Look at that.
There we go.
All right.
Bar brothers, as they say.
That's all. Love it. Good for you. So, so you passed your one time,
I
and
did.
yep.
And I was slated to go to a firm in Boston that specializes in like private equity, venture capital, fund
Wow.
work, and startup work. So I did the OCI thing, took the OCI offer, and went there. Amazing group of people, absolutely amazing. I mean, within my first 6 months, I got to work on an IPO of a company. I did a like nearly $1 billion merger, like started a bunch of companies from the legal side, obviously.
Wow.
Got to work on fun work. They gave us such a breadth of exposure early on, which I think is absolutely amazing. Don't
And
get me
this
wrong.
was a big firm.
Yep. Yep.
Do they have a snack cart though? Like that's the
They did have a snack cart. They had
okay.
an
Well, the
entire
snack
snack
cart.
room.
You stay past 8, you want that snack cart coming around. You might.
My friend, there was an entire snack room
There we
anytime
go.
you want,
Okay. All right.
anytime of
So
day.
that's awesome. You got. So I think the important thing is that like you went in. You went to a very reputable law school. Um, you made the connect. You passed the Mass Bar, and you went to like a really reputable firm, right? So like that had a snack cart. So obviously it's like a bigger firm, maybe. But you still sort of took like a different route. Like you tried it, you tasted it, right?
Yep. I mean, that my thought process was I went into law school knowing I didn't want to be a lawyer, right? And when it came to like the end of law school, it was like, well, if you don't do it now, this door is kind of going to close to you. So you might as well dip your toe in this pool and just make sure that it's not something you want to do. Not to mention the starting pay was good, right?
Yeah.
For a
Well,
kid who had never like had a real job, I mean,
yeah.
straight through law school or straight through college to law school, it was good to have a little play money for
Yeah.
from it. Not that I had any time to spend it, but it was
Right.
good to amass it.
Right. No, that's awesome. So when did you leave? Like what made you leave?
Uh, well, there came a time that, as delightful as all those people were, I was like, I woke up in the morning, thought about the fact that I had to go to work, and I was like, man, this
How long did that
sucks.
take? Like how many like a
Do you
year?
want to know exactly? It took just under 8 months.
Okay.
Like,
All right.
and, and mentally, I was like, this isn't for me. I
You
don't want to do
were
this
you burnt
forever.
out?
Yeah, there were like weeks where I was billing like 95 hours or like it got even high. And that doesn't, it's not the time that you're there. That's the time that you're actually billing,
Right,
right?
right, right.
And I'm sure that there are people out there that can do it for far longer than I can. And I respect them so much. And the
How
world
do they
needs those people.
focus so long? Like, especially in the day of like cell phone. I don't know, man. Like, people are billing, and it's just I don't know if the system's going to work. I mean, people are looking at their phones every few minutes. Like, there's just
Mhm.
so many distractions that I don't know if that's going to be accurate anymore. You know what I mean?
Yep. I totally agree. But I had this like really like firm memory in my brain. I was sitting in a boardroom with about like 15 attorneys. And I was like, we were working on like a client deal. And I think we spent like 8 minutes debating whether something should be a semicolon or another form of punctuation.
Oh,
And I was thinking to myself, I know what you're billing me out at. And literally everyone in this room is billing out at a higher rate than I am, especially I think there were like 4 partners in the room. If I was a client, I would be like, I don't want you to figure it out to that
so
level of
everybody was
detail.
billing for that particular like which are
Oh,
we?
this was like deal negotiation. Both sides, both firms were I'm sure billing every single minute.
Wow.
But I realize that the world needs people like that because when that contract gets tested, you're going to be darn glad that they actually debated that for a while and made sure it
Huh.
was the right piece of
That's
punctuation. But
interesting. Yeah.
I just don't want to do that
It's
personally.
just not going to be you. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
No,
I was
that
okay with it.
totally okay. And you know what? Like you have so Do you want to say anything else about that, the firm and leaving, or no? Or can I move on a little bit?
Yeah, of course. I
No,
mean,
I just
they
want
were
to say
super
like
nice.
you have like incredible experience. I mean, you obviously you came from a family of lawyers. You left, and you went on your own to like where was it? You went to Hong Kong
Mhm.
for like to work at these companies. You come back. You're at a law firm, and then so MeanPug.
Yep,
Well, let's talk about MeanPug.
sure.
Um, tell it like you're a partner there, and
Yep,
tell us about like your main role and like how you came into being there.
sure. So I wound up at MeanPug right after my second time living in Hong Kong. So I had started my first company. That one went to shit. Excuse me, that one went bad. I don't know if I could curse.
It's gonna be
Um,
like across. Like, just kidding.
um, but started that one, didn't go so hot. Started second one, went good, and then I wound up getting picked up by a company in Hong Kong to be their head of strategy for a while. And what literally like complete serendipity had happened is COVID hit in Asia before it hit in the US and the rest of the world.
Right. Interesting. Yep.
So I knew that things were going to lock up, right? And my company was trying to close its like new round of funding right before, and I actually wound up flying back for like a family event. And then everything locked down over there. And when things locked down, this was like fresh COVID, like no one knew what was going on. So like the company I was working for wound up missing their round of funding, and they were like, "Hey, can you work for free for a while?" I was like, "I can for a while, but not forever."
Yeah.
Right. And then it bled and it took longer and longer. So my buddies
I
wound up
know that.
calling.
So like, I think that was the key. Like everything just went longer and longer. Like that, I experienced that too. Like in my regular day to day, like
Mhm.
everything was just. You thought it was going to be a week. You thought it was going to be 2 weeks, and it ended up going just longer and longer and longer. And I think everybody felt that. Like you would have done or like planned different things had you known it was going to
Mhm.
be a year.
Yep.
But and okay, so go ahead. So your
Yep.
buddy, like you could work for them for some time, but not the whole time, and then
Yep. So it kind of got to the point where like the investor money had been locked up. Like everyone was just going into their safety mode, right? So I was sitting here in the States and I got a call from my buddy Andy. And he's like, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you working on?" I was like, "Yeah, I was doing this thing out in Hong Kong, but it sounds like it's going to take even longer for them to get their round of funding."
how do
Like,
you know Andy?
I know Andy from Miami. So
Okay,
me and Andy started way back in the day, just college buddies.
awesome. Okay, that's great.
And then over the years, like we always hung out when we saw each other. So he's from the same place that I am. Whenever I was in New York, like we would hang out, we would have fun.
Cool.
And I wound up meeting his buddy Bobby that he was working with at the time. This was a few years before we started MeanPug, and just wound up getting familiar with them and good friends. He said, "You're a lawyer. We've been working in this legal space for a while. Do you have any interest in doing something with us?"
Yeah,
And we literally started. I mean, Andy and Bobby had been working together for a minute. They brought me in and they said, "Hey, do you want to build a business together?" Because I had learned lessons from my failures and from my successes.
yeah.
So we wound up just starting it, just the three of us, and just grow, grow, grow since then. So originally, my thing was to just be the lawyer, right? So Andy and Bobby are amazing at what they do.
Hmm.
Absolutely amazing. Bobby is an amazing technologist. That guy can build things that I have no idea how he does it, but if you give him something on the tech side, he just gets it done, whether it's a
That's cool. Yeah.
CRM build or building out an app, building amazing looking websites. He's
Wow.
just one of the best technologists I've ever met. And then
Which
Andy is probably one of the savviest marketers I've ever seen. Right, that guy can figure out how to get better unit economics on just about anything than anyone in the space that I've seen so far. Very creative, very very on top of his thing, detail oriented. Like he's just good.
like
He
did you
always
know that
gets it.
about your friend? Like you'd been hanging out with your friend in Miami. Like did you know how good he was at like his craft?
I didn't know to the extent that I do now,
Okay.
but I always knew that he was very because Andy was the type of person that like just got pleasure from learning, like true pleasure from learning. Like
Yep.
I would walk into his apartment sometimes, he'd be just sitting there reading something in the quiet. I was like, you don't have a TV on? You don't have anything?
You
He's
don't
like,
have
no,
the
I'm loving it.
That's great.
Um, but yeah, so I was kind of brought in as like the lawyer and as kind of I mean, I had a lot of connections in the spaces. So I started in something of like a biz dev role, right?
Yep.
But as you know, with any company, you have to wear 1,000 hats at any given
Sure.
time.
Yeah.
Right. So as the business has progressed, like we wound up first growing the business to a point where it was like self-sustaining. Now we're doing well. But we've wound up introducing some pretty cool new kind of business lines that really no one else is offering.
Okay. That's
Right.
awesome.
So like right now, so we noticed that one of the best ways for attorneys to get cases in the door is referrals, right? But no one seems, except for a few like big players in the contingency fee space,
Mhm.
really seems to invest that much time in building out their referral network. Right? You might send a couple of partners to a couple of events every year, but no one has actually built out a process around how do I build relationships in the space? Because the reality is the public looks at lawyers like most people look at doctors. They don't know the difference between a cardiothoracic surgeon and a podiatrist,
Mhm.
right? They just think if you're a lawyer, you're a lawyer. So
Right.
there are tons of people with good claims and viable cases and all kinds of business that are going to the lawyer that they know, but it's not the right type of lawyer for their particular circumstance, right? So we said, how do we wind up helping people match their specific instance to the lawyer that they're talking to,
Okay.
right? Or to the right lawyer to talk to, rather. So we built out an entire kind of system that's it's a lot of data, a lot of manual stuff, but we've essentially systematized relationship building in the legal space and to an
Okay.
extent maintenance. So now
Relationship building between clients and lawyers, or lawyers and lawyers?
lawyers and lawyers,
Okay.
right? So if you're a divorce attorney and someone that you used to help said, hey, I got in a car accident, we have a way to make sure that whenever that person gets an inquiry outside of their space, they're thinking of you,
Mhm.
right? And it's got a personal relationship. You guys will have talked. It's really systematizing just inner career connections, right? Or inner industry connections.
Right.
Um, so now I lead that and obviously do all the things that partners have to do, go out, build new partnerships between
Yep.
us and other people in the legal space, whether it's a law firm or a vendor or something of the sort. So it's just a lot of relationship maintenance now.
That's amazing. So, okay, so that's like your relationships. You're building relationships at MeanPug. How long have you been there?
So we've been at it about 3 years. I think about a week after we like decided we were going to do this,
Okay.
like we locked down in the US. But yeah, about three
Okay.
years.
So, okay. All right. So, like, what kind of firms are you assisting right now? And like, what are you doing for them? Like, I know you talk about connecting, but
Mhm.
like, what kind of offering? Because on your website, you talk about like SEO and building
Mhm.
the website and like that sort of thing. So tell us like what the crux of like what you're. I know it's connecting people you talked about, but like, tell us more about like what MeanPug is doing.
Yep. So the connecting people is just one of our product lines, right? What the firm does as a whole is we are a full service partner in growth for law firms. So for contingency based firms, which is who we primarily work with, we do pretty much everything soup to nuts to get clients in the door. So that means we'll build the website, make sure you have good digital infrastructure that's built on a solid foundation. We'll write content and do SEO to make sure that your site is ranking, people can come and find resources. Obviously, we make sure everything is like ethically compliant. The lawyers always have an opportunity to review before anything gets posted. We're doing PPC, like pay-per-click ads. We're running Google, Facebook, social, all those kinds of things.
Wow.
We do TV, radio, billboard. Um, we help with CRM implementation. The only thing that we don't do in-house is call center work because that is difficult and there are better vendors out there than
Yeah,
us for that.
for sure. Yep.
But really what we do is we get law firms clients.
That's That's awesome. That is definitely full service. So like going back to the lawyer thing real quick, like what
Of course.
advice would you have for a lawyer who wants to have an alternative career?
Don't be afraid to try it, right? I think a lot of times people, both mentally and by others, get like pigeonholed into, oh, you're the lawyer. And in some worlds it's like, oh my God, you're the lawyer and you're looked up to. And in some worlds it's
Right,
like, oh, you're just the lawyer, right? Like, what do you know?
right.
Um, so don't limit yourself to that, right? If you want to get into an alternative space, I mean, I can tell you, my father, for example, he was a lawyer, but that guy has done everything under the sun. He's helped presidential campaigns, he's run
Wow.
things on Wall Street. Like the thing he always said was, on the business side, like you can always throw the lawyers out of the room, but it's good when you're still in the room, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, it's always going to be an asset.
Right, right. So you're a full service
Mhm.
growth company for law firms.
Yep,
Where are the firms that you're helping
nationally. So
nationally? Okay.
we have firms from California to the East Coast, in the South, in the Midwest, all over the place.
What's your biggest vehicle for getting the firms to join you guys?
Um, Actually, for us, probably referrals,
Referrals.
right?
Okay.
You go
Yep.
out, you do a good job. Like obviously, there are other mediums we can run advertising, we can do that, but we found that there is nothing better than doing a good job for someone and having them say, "Hey, you should talk to these guys."
Yeah.
That's been the best engine for our growth. So just delivering good value and keeping people happy.
So why the lawyer space? Why not like accountants or doctors or?
Sure. So Andy and Bob used to work for one of the biggest plaintiffs firms in the nation.
Okay, I know who.
So they've
Yes,
got,
I know who that is. All right. Yep. Who you're
yep.
talking about? Morgan. Yep.
So they have deep experience in the plaintiff space specifically, right? In that,
Yep.
client acquisition in the plaintiff space is an entirely different animal than client
Mhm.
acquisition at like a Skadden or something of the sort, like on the business side.
Right.
Um, or even to an extent than on like a divorce side or anything. Like the it is probably one of the most competitive spaces, and you have to be really, really good. So we just played to what we were good at.
Yep.
Um, in the future, we may expand, but for now, we have found an industry that we enjoy, that we like the people that we work with in the space, and there's always new and exciting things
Yeah.
happening, whether it's a new mass tort or a new way of attacking to try to find clients.
Why'd you guys name it MeanPug?
There is a namesake. Bobby does have a dog. It's very cute, but when you look at it, it kind of looks mean.
It's
Looks
mean.
like a
Yeah.
jerk.
What's the dog's name?
Dog's name is Tiki.
Tiki. I like it. All right. So should lawyers like fear technology? There's a lot of technology out there. Like what? Like how do we adapt? Like should they fear it or what?
So some should. To be fair, there are some that should. Technology, I mean, in my humble opinion, so take it with 2 grains of salt, is just a tool, right? If you figure out how to use the tool and you are now infinitely more efficient and infinitely more productive than everyone else, you are going to succeed. But if ultimately you don't have the appetite or you get stuck in like, oh, this stuff is stupid, the world will probably pass you by at a faster rate than we've seen. I mean, what in 2020, it's May of 2023.
Yep.
The world already looks very different than it did in like October of last year.
True.
So I think if you're not willing to adopt new things, then it will get scary for you probably pretty quickly.
So I guess my question then to go off that is how do you convince like an attorney who's not in the twilight of their career, but maybe like 10 years, you're close to it. Like, how do you get them to go with you and like work on SEO and like have like a Instagram account and like do TikToks? Like, how does that happen?
Sure. So I think it really depends on the lawyer and what their time horizon is. Exactly what you said. I actually had a conversation with a potential client earlier this week, And he was like, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna retire in 2 years. I want to get into this SEO stuff." I was like, "Man, save your money because there are some strategies that will take much longer than your time horizon,
Right.
right?" So I think for lawyers that are looking to acquire clients, understanding their time horizons and when they want that cash in the door, that's the biggest thing, right? Because the way that people, consumers, have started making decisions is fundamentally different than it used to be, right? People used to go and ask their friends, "Hey, do you have a good lawyer for this? Do you have whatever?" Now they go Google it. And everyone knows that they Google it because when you're in a new city and you go to the like to find a place to eat, what do? You Google it, right? So understanding that having like a good digital presence, fortunately, is something most firms understand that they need,
Yeah.
right? And then the decision is who is going to shepherd me into like the best spot. And I think lawyers, for the majority, understand that they are good at being lawyers, right? They're not technologists. They're some of them are amazing business people, but by and large, a lot of them are just really, really good at being lawyers.
Yeah.
So
That's
hire
right.
just like you wouldn't have a tech guy go walk into court and represent himself. You shouldn't be going into the digital space without an expert.
That's right. Yeah, that's so true. So what's the biggest mistake that you see lawyers making?
Not delegating. Exactly what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
I see so many lawyers, and I think it's just something that like attracts people who like to control things. This is a profession that attracts people that like to control things. But understanding that there are going to be people out there that are better than you at a specific thing, that's the person you want to hire, right?
Yeah.
And it does sometimes it means you bring in a COO to actually run the business of your business. If you are an amazing litigator, you should probably be focusing most of your time on litigating.
That's right.
Let someone who's great at doing the business stuff do all the business stuff.
That's right.
The biggest, I guess, to put it succinctly, the biggest thing or the biggest mistake I see people making is not giving the people around them enough space or hiring the right people around them to get things done that they shouldn't be doing.
Right. Totally. You got to delegate. So
Mm-hmm.
important to do what you're good at and to do what you like, and push off the other stuff. So what makes MeanPug different than the other brands out there?
In terms of the client acquisition firms,
Client acquisition, maybe even place to work, like your style, your approach, anything.
sure. So we have always prided ourselves on hiring the best at what they do, right? Our head of content is absolutely incredible. Our designer is absolutely incredible. Like we're not afraid to go out and to delegate to those people and let them do the thing that they're amazing at. But we've also stayed pretty lean, right? We pride ourselves on kind of obvious. I'm talking outside of like delivering exactly what we promised or better, right? Um, we've stayed lean, and that has enabled us to have kind of a personal touch to everything we do. Like every single week, we have 2 meetings with everyone in the company.
How many
And
people is that?
so, depending on the number of writers we have on staff at any given time, it'll fluctuate from 15 up to 25.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yep. And they're like, it's just a great core group of people. Everyone's got exposure to everyone. We literally have a meeting every week where we just talk nothing, like nothing to do with business, just what's everyone doing, how's everything going, just sit
Great,
and laugh. And
great.
that bleeds onto the client side because I know if anyone on my team gets a question that they don't know the answer to, there is no hesitation to reach out to someone else on the team and say, "Hey, I don't know this answer, but I'm going to reach out to Mike, or I'm going to reach out to Bobby, or I'm
Yeah,
going to reach out to Andy and get things done." And all of our clients can get in touch with anyone on our staff at any given time.
that's so important. That's so important. That's
Yep.
great. Um, Give us some like general advice for lawyers at any stage of their career.
Hmm. Some general advice for lawyers.
That's kind of a very vague.
I've actually got a good one that one of my law school professors told me. I had heard it before in life, but one of my law school professors told me this, and I think it holds true in just about every area of law I've ever touched. And that's, you should probably spend more time listening than speaking, right? I think a lot of people in this profession make a lot of money by being amazing at speaking. But to know what to say to put it succinctly, you don't learn anything from you speaking, right?
Right.
You learn a lot more from listening to others. So
That's right.
Go ahead.
No, I said that's right. That's right.
So whether it's listening, if you're a senior partner and you've been around for a while, listen to the young guys. They're going to know about the technology better than you do. If you're an older or if you're a younger partner, definitely listen to the people that are above you. They've got way more experience.
Yeah.
But I think in general, if you ask more questions and answers you give, you're probably doing something right.
That's awesome. So what's Mike's passion?
My friend, completely unrelated to any of this. I'm a big traveler.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, I don't think it's unrelated. You did a lot of traveling. I mean, you've lived different places. You went to, different school where your schools that you went were in different locations of the U.S. and you've lived in Hong Kong, and that's great though, right? Because you could get clients anywhere, and you might need to go on some visits and travel a little
For
bit.
sure.
Right?
I mean, it's comfy to me to just hop on a plane and go somewhere. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I was out in Vegas for a conference. Last week, I was in
Nice.
Denver with some clients. Then I was in San Francisco. Now I'm in DC. I'm going to be in Miami soon. Like, I like jumping around.
That's awesome. That's great. Where's home base for you?
For the past few years, I've actually been doing the digital nomad thing. So home base has been changing every now and then.
Okay. All right. Right on.
Airbnb has been the landlord for a little bit.
That's awesome. Good for you, man. You should do that. Is there anything we've left out today? Like, is there anything you want to tell us about MeanPug and what you guys are doing, what you hope to do in 5 years? Or
I mean, we're really just kind of at a stage where we're growing and we're just looking for more people that we enjoy working with.
Yep.
Right. So we've always held the philosophy that we would rather have a handful of amazing clients than be the McDonald's of services. Right.
Yeah.
We have no desire to have billions and billions of served and a bunch of people annoyed. I would rather just build something amazing with really, really good people.
That's
right?
awesome. I love that answer. That's tremendous.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Mike Jones, thanks for coming on. Attorney.
I can't thank you enough for having me. This has been so much fun.
I'm glad, man.
Really appreciate it.
Partner at MeanPug Digital. Lawyer Stories just connected with MeanPug a couple weeks ago. Hopefully more to come. And Mike, thanks so much. Stay right there. Lawyer Stories community, wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.